so it's time to start working on the hip. So I've just pre-done this to show you what we're aiming for. So we've got a nice little subtle movement in the hips here. I'll just turn the controls back on so I can see again. Now you can see more clearly what I've done with the hip control here. Just select it as well so we can see what curve we have in the graph. So we've only done it on the rotate Z for now. See this kind of nice curve we've got, this flowing motion here. So the peaks are on the passing pose this time, so frame 7 and 19, and then we've got like a nice flow into them and out of them. So I'll show you how I've done this. So I'll just delete these keyframes and we'll start from 0. Okay, so let's straight away we'll go to frame 7, and now the standing leg here I'm going to do the rotate in the opposite direction. Now for now we don't really know how much we want to fully rotate. I'm just going to hit yes to set a keyframe, and then we'll go to frame 19. But what we want to do here is actually copy frame 7, paste it on 19, just so we get like a consistent movement. And I'll just take the minus off there, so then we get the opposite, so we're inverting it. So we've got an inverted thing here. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got. So we've got this kind of smooth curve from one extreme to the other. So we want to get this to loop around anyway. So let's go to frame 1, and we can just move that up ever so slightly. So now there, and what we'll do is just straight away we'll copy frame 1 and we'll paste it at frame 25 because we won't get in this loop. So there we go. Now it's time to start kind of getting a better timing and spacing on these curves. So I'll go to frame 4 and I'll just slightly put it down there. So what I've done here is I've kept the graph open here. It's quite a nice way to work, so you can see when you're plotting these keyframes what's happening to your curve. So I know I'm getting a smooth bit more, and you can see I'm not going, say if I was doing this manually I wouldn't know that I'd gone past my extreme pose there, but because I see on my curve it's not gone higher, so it's nice, and it's quite nice smooth curve there. Now when I'm moving these keyframes on the graph, I'm holding down shift and making sure I'm on the translate tool. I'm always dragging over it just so I know I've left click and drag just so I know I've got hold of the right keyframe, especially when you're trying to move handles and stuff like that. And then I'm holding down shift, so it'll only move on the up and down. So if I'm holding down shift it won't let me move from side to side because I don't want to change any spacing. For example, if I move that way it shifts my keyframes and messes up my timing. So we're only working on the spacing of these keyframes now. So remember, the steeper the curve, the faster the movement is, and the kind of more curved is how slower it is. So next thing I need to do is just make sure this loops nicely, so these two keyframes flow into each other. So to be able to view this better, I can just come to the curves menu on the graph editor and cycle them. Now you see there's a slight little kink in there, so what we'll do is we'll just grab the handle, remember middle mouse button, make sure they just flow into each other a bit nicer. So that's our hip curve that we're looking for. Just turn the controls off there. It's not too bad actually, but I feel like it's a bit too much. So again, we can go turn the curves back on and have a look at our graph curve. And best way to make it less extreme is just grab the scale tool, select all the keyframes. Remember, scale tool is R as a shortcut on the keyboard. Hold down Shift, middle mouse button, and we can flatten the curve a bit, which just makes it, just takes the edge off. And when those peaks on the extreme poses aren't where the hips won't dip down as much and stuff like that. So let's have a look. So we've got a nice subtle hip movement in there now. Just check it from all angles. It's not as obvious on the side, but from the front, some nice hip movement there. So the next part, that's the bottom of the character done. And the next part we'll go and start looking at the upper body.